Are we live now, Gabby? All right.
Good morning, good morning.
Good morning, good morning. Well, welcome to 1 Million Cups Westminster. I'm Graham Dodge. I'm the Executive Director of Magic.
Good morning, good morning.
Sorry. We're one of the community sponsors here for 1 Million Cups Westminster, along with Startup Portal. Also, quick thanks to our coffee sponsors, American Ice Company Cafe on Main Street, and of course the baked goods provided by Jeannie Bird Baking Company, also on Main Street. So for those of you who don't know, the mission of 1 Million Cups is to lower the barrier of access for education, resources, and connections for entrepreneurs. This mission doesn't get accomplished without the core pillars of this program, which are that this is all about presentations, not pitches. This is about connection, not networking. Our culture is to be for the community, by the community. Nobody has ownership of 1 Million Cups Westminster. No one's being paid to do 1 Million Cups Westminster. And we intend to be radically inclusive. So we meet every week, Wednesdays at 9 a.m. whenever possible. We have one or two presenters when possible. When we have one presenter, we will do community updates. We'll save a little bit of time for those of you in the room that want to just get up and update us on what's going on. There are some times where we don't have any presenters and we do a full hour of community updates like we did last week, in fact, which is a lot of fun. And then we always ask that the presenting organizations be less than 5 years old or have some sort of exception to that rule if they have like a new product or service that they're launching. And we always try to remember to end with the question, what can we as a community do to help you? But sometimes we get so engaged in what you're talking about that we forget to ask that question. Our organizing team are myself from Magic, Chris Abel from the Carroll Technology and Innovation Council, Vicki Slinkman from Ting, Jonathan Wheatman, attorney at law, Tina Thomas from Infinite Love Project and Action for Kindness, Julius Knapp III from, where Julius? Oh, there he is, from Dirigible Systems, and Gabby Rose also from Magic. All right, so without further ado, I'll bring up our presenter today, Joe Madico, who's presenting not for Acumen CPG today, which of course you may recognize him from his presentation several months ago, but for InVenture Product Studios. So Joe, why don't you come on up and take it over?
Excellent, thank you for that, I appreciate that. My pleasure. Terrific, I just swipe right, or it looks like
the big button's forward.
An idiot first, so we'll test that theory and see if it actually works. Good morning, everybody. So my name is Joe Madico, as says talk. So I own a company called Acumen CPG, and it is a consulting company that looks at helping people who have product ideas how to commercialize it. And so it kind of focuses on a couple of different groups. The individual kind of aspiring innovator who has an idea but maybe doesn't have the practical knowledge, or established product companies who perhaps have stood up a product and stood up a business, but now their lack of knowledge is kind of a limitation to their growth and their ability to scale. And so that's kind of my day job, but my other day job is actually InVenture Product Studios, which Rick asked me to come talk to you today, and I'm very thrilled to be able to do this, so thank you for the invitation. Sure. And it's a little bit biased because Rick is actually one of the partners of InVenture Product Studios, as is Larry Wilner in the background there. Hey, Larry. There's a fourth partner we have as well, and his name is Brian Lawrence, and he owns a company called Red Lion Studio Design, and he's an industrial designer. But let me go ahead and talk about InVenture Product Studio, and bring you up to speed. So when Rick asked me to come present today, I was thinking about what do I want to talk about, what do I want to do, and do I give an update? Do we talk about some of the projects we're working on, what's what? And as I thought about it, I thought the best thing to do would be to start with the basics and actually go to a grounding of what InVenture Product Studio actually does and kind of help people understand it, so those who want to participate in the future can kind of understand what we're all about. And so what I started with was just this very boilerplate, what is a venture studio? And again, I'm not going to read this because I think you all are probably very good readers, so I don't need to read it for you. But just for a bit of a grounding, as I think about a venture studio and how that differs from, say, what a normal VC or a normal investment would be, the way I think about it is that, there's an existing business or a diamond in the rough, and do investors want to get involved? And do they want to say, hey, there's something there that we can kind of turn into something great? And I think if we look at a venture studio model, it's a little bit different, which is you're making your own luck, which is instead of kind of trying to identify something that could work, let's actually identify our own things that we know can work and then fund those and stand them up. And so once again, as I think about it, it's this idea about making your own luck. And so what I want to do is talk a little bit about InVenture Product Studio version and kind of what makes us different and what I think our competitive advantage is and how we operate. And so as I thought about it and I pulled this information together, I think it's kind of four basic areas that really set us apart. Number one, we have a very specific strategic focus of how we're going to win and what we're going to do. And it's this idea that instead of trying to be all things to all people, pick a lane, pick a place where you think you can really dominate and do well and focus in that area. And that's number one. And we're going to go details of these in the upcoming slides. The next one is knowledge of product development and how actual products and ideas go from, hey, I got a great idea, to a fully qualified, successful product on a store shelf that can actually be successful and make money. So it's that product development knowledge. The next, and the flip side of that coin is then the funding and the investment piece. And this is where obviously Rick and his incredible genius and what he does with Startup Portal is so important, because a great idea and a great process is nothing if there's no gas in the tank. And so you need that money, you need those investors to be able to make the whole thing work. And then as you pull all of those together, the goal is what can we do to really have good, predictable, and consistent ROI? And again, I want to speak a little bit about that. So this image on the bottom left here, I put in here is our lottery balls, if it's not obvious. And again, this is back to this idea about creating our own luck and making our own luck instead of random chance and hoping that you're going to hit the lottery and do well. And as I take a look at this, the core four areas I wanted to pull out was these, it's a consumer products focused. And I broke down the point of differentiation. And I am not from Maryland. I'm a transplant in about the last 5 to 7 years. And as I came out here for a product development career. And so I was working at Procter & Gamble, doing Max Factor and CoverGirl cosmetics, packaging, and device delivery. And so I've always been a product guy. So everything I look around, it's products. But when I came out here, I saw a lot of biomedical, I saw a lot of IT, I see a lot of kind of defense contractors, but I didn't see a lot of like consumer products. And so as we got together with Rick and Larry with Brian, the idea was if everybody's looking over there, is there this little segment over here called consumer goods that we could focus on in the Baltimore area and actually really take advantage of and kind of be a go-to place. And so that's number one, which is we differentiate ourselves by focusing on consumer products. The next thing is, once again, this idea about making our own luck, the gaps in the marketplace. As we think about innovation, what you can do, a lot of times you can be like a fast follower. Hey, if I'm going to develop an electric car and Tesla's very popular, I'll do an electric car and I'm going to get out there. Maybe it'll be cheaper, maybe a little bit different. Or you get other kind of companies, which is really about, innovation, which is I don't want to do some cheap knockoff. I want to light the world on fire with the most amazing, innovative thing in the world. So it's this idea to say, well, where do you want to be and how do you want to play with your products? How do you define the consumer products that you're working in? And so we're going to do a slightly different approach, which is instead of getting enamored with a given idea to say, wow, that's really neat, that's a cool, shiny object, we should definitely pursue it. Let's instead take a look at the marketplace and what's going on and say, for the modern 2022 to 2025, where are trends going? Where are people heading? Where are there underserved consumers that people are just crying out for some sort of a good or some sort of a business? And so once again, part of our approach is to say, let's identify those gaps and then reverse engineer products to meet those gaps. And once again, it's this idea about creating our own luck. The other part I want to call out is this idea about looking at future economic conditions, future consumer trends. And what we're trying to do is make ourselves as future-proof as possible. And obviously in the last few years, we know there's a lot of uncertainty and there's a lot of questions about the future and future global economy and shifting supply chains. Net, I think there's uncertainty. And again, questions about the dollar and are we going to go into a massive recession? Who knows? But what we want to do, in addition to kind of picking products and picking items that we know there's a demand for and that there's underserved consumers, we want to make sure that we're picking items that can survive and weather the storm. And not only weather the storm, but can we pick items and pick businesses that can actually thrive in certain economic conditions? And then once again, be able to have the agility to shift and move in the case that, the winds of change happen and we find that that industry is now starting to go down. We have the ability to shift and go elsewhere. And then the last piece is this idea about an evolving global sourcing or global supply chain. And one of the things we'd like to do is, because we are going to be product focused, there's largely going to be a manufactured production physical product aspect of it. And because of that, we'd like to be able to produce domestically wherever possible and be able to do things in the U.S. And so one of the things that we've seen in the last few years, and whether it was COVID or just, an evolution of kind of the global sourcing and China and Asian manufacturing, is that there's a big shift going on. And what you did 5 years ago or 3 years ago in terms of producing consumer products is not what it's going to look like 1 year from now or 2 years from now. And so once again, with this idea of anticipating and looking at what the road ahead is, we want to be able to take advantage of this evolving global sourcing picture and position our product and position our go-to-market approach to match the realities of kind of where things are. The next one then is, so that was our strategy and kind of like where we're going to focus and how we think we're going to win. The next thing is our product development, knowledge and expertise. And so I look at it as two sides of the coin. You've got the product development piece, and then the other side, as I said, is the investment funding CFO type of a piece that Rick obviously holds. And so a big thing of what we're doing in InVenture Product Studios is pulling together 30, well, if we actually count up the people, probably 60 years of direct consumer products experience and pulling it together and actually building a good, robust system that kind of has all of the core key disciplines covered, whether that's engineering, marketing, design, patents, whatever it might be, but having a good, robust, full cross-discipline group of professionals pulled together. Then the next thing we did was to take the best practices of all of the other consumer companies and to pull them together and say, what's a good system that's fast, agile, professional, that could work, in the modern world. So what we do is we pull from kind of industry titans like Procter & Gamble, Gillette, Hasbro, these kind of big names, big winners in the consumer goods, but then temper that with the reality of a startup or entrepreneurial small organizations. And as I started my consulting business, kind of coming out of 25 years of corporate America and then going into helping individuals, I had to go through a learning curve to realize that what works in the big cubicle farm of Procter & Gamble of 180,000 employees doesn't work for somebody who's trying to stand up a product and bootstrap it and get it out the door. And so I had to go through a lot of hard lessons to say, how do you blend the two in a way that makes sense? And so that's, again, part of the secret sauce of InVenture Product Studios is having a development system and a process that's not so rigid that you can't go forward or that you need millions of dollars to launch it, but also not so loosey-goosey and not so light that you can't scale the business or that you have to learn lessons in the very hard way. So that's a big thing of what we're trying to do. And then the last thing is, a deep bench for growth. We're trying to keep ourselves lean so that we can move fast and we can make decisions quickly and we can be smart about things. But we also need expertise. And as we talk about going into consumer products, that touches a lot of things. Whether you're talking about toothbrushes, you're talking about cosmetics, dog food, name it. The number of different industries and the number of different product forms within the consumer goods space is very vast. And so what we have is collectively with the team of InVenture Product Studios is access to a deep bench of experts across almost any industry you could think of, so that as we see that gap in the market, as we identify that product that we want to launch, we can successfully stand it up and actually kind of make a great business out of it because we have access to all of this great, kind of tribal knowledge or proven knowledge. The next thing I want to talk about is just talking about this funded for purposeful growth. And this is really where Rick, I should have you come up here and talk because, this is a great area of what you do. But it's this idea that, if the idea is there but the money's not there, then it's really largely an academic exercise. So what can we do to marry the money with the part? And so what we have is we have a very unique and interesting funding investor mechanism that's been put together, which we are marrying with the product development portion of it. And what this allows us to do is, once again, flexibility. That if we need a little bit of money, do we need a lot of money? Is this a type of investment that's more for an individual, or is this more of like a crowd-funded type of an option? And so there's this great methodology that's been put together by Rick and by Startup Portal to be able to kind of have a unique, flexible, and effective funding mechanism. And one of the things that I think is a hallmark, Rick, as I looked at your system was the research piece and the black box behind the scenes, the magic of how you generate data and say, okay, what's the real valuation of this and who are the key players in this area? And once again, it's this idea to say, do you have the discipline to be able to instill that confidence in the investors, to be able to get them to a yes, to be able to get them to not saying, well, I've seen this 10,000 times before. No, look at the quality of the data. Look at what we pull together. And I think it's one of the things that really gives InVenture Product Studios a great competitive advantage and that we're going to use. And again, it's this idea about irresistible choice, which is by the time we tie together a compelling story, compelling product that strategically makes sense and is future-proof, with a great funding options and ease of funding with all of that research behind it, our thought is it's going to be irresistible for prospective investors. That as they see 1,000 investment opportunities come across their desk, we want ours to jump off the page in vibrant color from the gray monotony of everything else they see. And again, that's the reason why we're pulling the structure together so that we're irresistible to prospective investors. And then I think everything else I probably have spoken to, discipline and then, funding sufficiency. And this last piece I just want to touch on a little bit, which is this idea about bootstrapping it versus a well-funded organization. And I think like everything else in life, it's a balancing act between the two. And I think in the beginning, every project has a bootstrapping element to it. But I think everybody will know, who the entrepreneurs in this room, that difficult part of making the money, reinvesting in the business, get a little bit of a fire started so you can try to grow it into something. And that's a normal path, but that's also a path that takes forever. And we want to be able to actually, once we get ourselves going and we're successful, to be sufficiently funded so we can really scale these things up and actually make substantial brands and substantial, product offerings, not just small individual SKUs. And so we're actually swinging for the fences and going for something very substantial that really has great upside potential. And the last couple of slides here, pulling this kind of all together as we talk about, return on investment and, what it all means. And so one of the things I think that this part about rookie mistakes is we got together and we spent a lot of time as a group getting very clear on what we want to do. And the point is we want to act with intentionality. And a lot of times it's very common that you go to A, B, C, D progression, or what I call this left to right progression. I've got an idea, or I want to do something. Okay, I'll do this first. What comes next? Okay, what comes next? And by doing that, you run this risk of drift and wandering and scope creep that can occur over time. So one of the things we really wanted to do was early on figure out what do we want to be when we grow up? How are we actually going to win? And actually try to avoid a lot of these rookie mistakes of just learning our way through and instead kind of act with intentionality. Industries and products have a clear right to win and an ability to endure. I don't want to belabor the point, but this idea about a clear right to win, one of the things we're doing in our methodology that I think is very important is how do you distinguish a good idea from a bad idea? And I think one of the dangers, especially in the consumer goods space, is it's exciting, it's sexy, it's fun. And so when you see that cool item, that shiny object, it's natural to gravitate towards it and want to do that item because, God, it's so damn cool. But is it cool is not necessarily the same as is it going to be successful in the marketplace. Can you actually earn market share and actually win? Are the financials good? Do you have an ability to grow? Do you have a repeatable profit model? And so again, it's this idea about this right to win is a big part of our secret sauce and making sure that we can really, in an objective, cold, calculated way, discern a good idea from a bad idea and to try to remove the emotion from it and try to remove the shiny object syndrome so that we can really make sure we're focusing on something. The next part is baked in strong margins and profitability, I think is very important. One of the common fallacies that I see all the time when people want to stand up a product or launch a product is, once again, it's this left to right progression. I've got this idea. Okay, it's a prototype. Let me go take it to a factory. They're going to tell me how much it costs to manufacture. Okay, now I can say, how much can I charge how much will consumers pay for this? And so now all of a sudden, from day one, I would argue your financial metrics are screwed up. Because have you protected enough gross margin? Do you have a visibility or profitability on this item? Or is it largely turned into a charity project because your numbers are so screwed up? So one of the things we do as InVenture Product Studios is we work backwards to say, okay, we want to launch an eyeglass is the item that we're going to stand up. What are consumers willing to pay? What is that sensitivity with consumer pricing? Identify that. Identify the associated margins for that industry that's acceptable for retailers or for others, and then work backwards and let that inform what the resulting manufacturing cost should be to support those margins. And so we do that all in a paperwork exercise from day number one, so that as we stand and launch up these projects, we now actually have enough meat on the bone from a margin perspective to, once again, not only be profitable and make the business work, but allow us to grow and expand because we're not always in this mode of cost cutting and trying to squeeze a half a penny out just to keep the business alive. So once again, that's part of the methodology, making sure that we have strong margins and strong profitability from day one. And again, as I talked about this clear right to win, if we go through that exercise and we just can't make the numbers work because the cost of manufacture versus what consumers are willing to pay, the disparities just can't work, then that would be a product that we would argue does not have the right to succeed, and therefore we would exit out and not spend any more time or money or energy against that product. So once again, we want to make our own luck. Dominate the competition, and once again, self-explanatory. And then the last thing I'll probably touch on, and then I'm going to pause here, is this idea about, this ROI. And I think that it's two components. We want to be able to make money along the way and do well, but then also try to really work that we're building that value and that equity for a future cash out or a future sale or a divestiture or whatever it might be, but to be able to give ourselves option. And again, what we're trying to do is try to take a look at where we want to be and then position ourselves for such and then work to go there instead of building an item and say, God, I hope this is successful and I could dream that one day get big enough that we're attractive. No, let's pre-bake that in from day one, make ourselves attractive for a future acquisition option or a target, excuse me. So anyways, this is my last slide, and then I want to kind of shift over to questions or thoughts and what's what. So what we've done so far is we've kind of stood up the organization and we've kind of built it and got it functional. And one of the expressions that, I say all the time is we're building the airplane as we're flying it. And that's really honest. Because a lot of times you can sit there and you can be stuck in planning stage for 9 months and then it's okay, the plan's perfect, let's go forward. But obviously, working in an entrepreneurial world, we all realize and appreciate that you got to keep moving. You can't just sit around and wait and let perfect be the enemy of good. So we've kind of built something, and as we started to build it and put it together, we realized, what we originally thought versus where we are now, it's mutated and it's shifted. And it's still the core DNA is still there, but it's shifted, and we're actually very happy because going through that working process allows us to really tighten it up and get it clean. So now we have a very good system. We've got a structure. We've built our initial pipeline of launch products, and those have been identified. So I'm not going to share them today because it's proprietary, but we're excited about them, and we're happy to get those moving forward. And now we're going through and actually pulling together all this information, make sure we have a clean articulation of these projects, and we have a good funding strategy in place so that we can now go out and start to seek money for these initial seeded projects to get the business stood up. And then we're going to go ahead and have a kickoff and start it. And in the meantime, as we seek and to get the money to stand up these projects, we're going to continue to work in the background to launch these items and get them as far as we can, once again, in that bootstrapping thing, and then transition to the well-funded projects that can really succeed and do well. So that's it. So I appreciate you guys bearing with me. I know that's a lot I threw on the table. But it was a good opportunity, as Rick asked me to come here, to say, okay, all of these crazy conversations with Larry and with Brian and with Rick, what does it all mean? And so this little exercise was a healthy thing for me to go through and to crystallize and pull it together. So hopefully my ramblings, it makes sense and it's good. It makes sense to me, but I appreciate you guys listening and indulging me as I try to articulate this stuff. So,
Thanks, Joe. All right. Well, who wants to kick off the questions? Tina Thomas, Ms. Project.
Hi, thank you so much. Very, very articulated, very well.
Thank you.
2 questions. So an initial and a follow-up. The first question is, what trends and industries have you been looking at?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Go with that one.
Sure. My background, I came from the toy industry, is where I started off my career. And one of the oddities of the toy industry was that in bad economic times, people will still spend money on toys for their children. And I think the logic and the psychology is that they got to tighten up their household belt. They're not buying the things that they want to buy, and they feel bad that they can't buy things for their children. Their children need to suffer along with them in these bad economic times. And so toys, as an example, is something that's kind of recession-proof to a point. And so that was part of the logic. And along those lines, we're looking at actually pet care. And we think pet care is very analogous to this toy industry, which is people will spend money on pets, and they will continue to do it. And I would argue that if we take a look at brick and mortar retail, and that would be your Walmart, your Best Buys of the world. Let's pick on Best Buy for a second. Best Buy used to have Circuit City, Best Buy, Fry's. It used to have all these big places, and now they've all shrunk down to a crappy Best Buy that you can find here and there. And e-commerce has really kind of come in and gobbled it up and destroyed it. Now let's look at the pet industry. PetSmarts are everywhere. All of them seem to be exploding, blowing up, and I think it kind of reinforces this idea that it's an industry that continues to do well because people want to indulge their pets just like they want to indulge their children. So it's a very long answer to a very short question, but that's the rationale why we're choosing pets as one of our items. We have 4 items initially, and we're going to keep some of them under wraps, but they're actually pretty diverse. Some of them are promotional items. Others are educational items. And once again, we're trying to be product form agnostic and instead go where the need and the demand is and let that inform what kind of products we're producing or pursuing. What was your second question?
The second question was in regards to consumables versus sustainability. Mm-hmm. I know you're talking about trying to source nationally versus globally, but there is, of course, a whole global economy going on that shifts everything.
Absolutely.
But when you advise, when you're looking at actually creating the products, where does sustainability and the potential of helping these people become B Corps?
Absolutely. Now, the sustainability, just to calibrate the language, are you thinking environmental sustainability or sustainability in terms of long-term ability to survive, or just say a little bit more on sustainability to make sure I'm calibrated?
Health of the planet, health.
Gotcha. Perfect. Yeah, no, actually, that's a very exciting area that we have an opportunity to do something because we're a clean sheet of paper. A lot of times what happens, especially in my past, as I work on established brands, it's in the market. You can only do so much in terms of changing the product to make it more sustainable before you reach a point where either A, you're going to trigger a big price increase, which is going to hurt your product, or B, you have to make so many changes that consumer delight and consumer experience takes a nosedive because you're pursuing it. If you're a blank sheet of paper, now you can do all of that from the get-go and not have to worry about untying these old knots that were there before you. A quick little story. I used to lead the Crest packaging and devices for P&G. And that was in 2008. And that was right when Walmart was coming out with what's called the Walmart scorecard. And what they looked at was grams of packaging material per consumer use as a metric. So if you can get 100 uses of toothpaste out of the tube of toothpaste, how many grams of packaging material do you actually have? And then you divide out the number of uses. It's okay, it's this many grams of packaging material per this consumer use. How does that compare to Colgate? How does that compare to other industries? And so that was my early introduction to sustainability, but we all knew that there would be a point where consumers were standing at shelf and she's got two equal products in her hand. Same pricing, same benefits, same belief. But one of them has a better sustainability story because it uses renewable materials or less energy or whatever it might be. We always theorized that there would be a point where people would say, no, that more sustainable product's going to win the day. And I think now we fast forward to 2022, 2023, and we're actually at that point now, to where you see all of the different, green products and other kind of products with recycled material or whatever it might be at retail. So I think we've now kind of evolved that to where the consumer base is now demanding sustainability. And the fact that you're asking the question indicates that it's top of mind of consumers. So once again, that will be part of our design and development process is the sustainability piece. Because we want to do it for two reasons. Number one, it's the right thing to do. We can't just create landfill fillers for the rest of our life and dump stuff in the hole. So number one, it's the right thing to do. And number two, I would say that to be competitive in the future and this trend to continue towards sustainable products, you got to position yourself to where you're visibly sustainable and you're meaningfully sustainable as a competitive advantage for how you're going to win in the marketplace. Absolutely. Yes.
I like your name.
Thank you.
So how do you make money? Are you basically looking to be an equity partner in these different startups or consultancy?
Yes, that's definitely a part of it. And I think that there has to be a distinction between whether we're talking about internally produced products for InVenture Product Studio, they're kind of homegrown, versus products that are coming from the outside world who want to participate in Venture Product Studios. So we're amenable and actually open to both. So
the 4 products now, are they internal ideas?
Those are internal, and we actually strategically did that on purpose. The reason we did these 4 projects internally is that we want to be able to get early wins and early base hits to be able to start the flywheel, that inertia going, and to be able to get that initial investment. So by doing the projects internally initially, it gave us better control, and it gave us better control over the speed as well as kind of the predictability of what's what. But the door is open for external people to come in. And now when people come in from the outside, then how we make money looks different, because it could be, the services and the support we offer could be a revenue stream. It's definitely the equity piece in the business. And but a lot of different touch points in which we can make money along.
So your 4 ideas you're standing up now are from your 3 or 4 partners?
The 4, yeah.
Okay.
And one of the things that we want to do is, once again, we really want to swing for the fences and make this thing as big as it could be. And I joke with Larry, something we've talked about before, which is none of our runways are getting any longer. And so we got to...
Wait, time out. The point that he says that to me. Not that I look like I'm old, but let's be honest.
But, if we were 25 years old and we're like, hey, screw corporate America, and we're young guys, we're all going to get together to do this thing. Okay, maybe we do a slow burn, and we say, over the next 30 years, we're going to build something amazing. But we all look in the mirror, and I look at the gray, and I'm like, oh, crap, I hear the time ticking. So let's try to make this thing real and substantial. And where I'm going with this is this idea that while we're starting modest with these homegrown stuff, we're looking to actually build brands. We're actually looking to build categories, not just individual products. And so that's going to be part of the whole method. And so as we talk about how we're structuring what we're doing we're trying to do it in a way that can allow us to scale, allow us to grow so that our capacity is very, very deep. So instead of just the four of us doing it, we can build this thing as big as we want and really have control over it.
But the reality is, if one of your killer ideas takes off, I mean, you're open to that, right?
Absolutely right. Yeah. I think if an individual item took off and was just doing amazing, I'd be tickled pink and I'd say great. So absolutely. Yes.
So what drove you from actually being in it and, making packaging to actually wanting to help people do their own thing? What caused that shift?
I'm trying not to give a black-pilled answer, but I'll give an honest answer, which is the reason I left corporate was I became disenchanted with it. And I knew that I could do so much more and that people could have so much more fulfillment, professional fulfillment. And perhaps it's not a knock against a corporation, but I think there's a certain dynamic that forms naturally in large corporations that it starts to become very robotic and it seems distant. And as I looked at that, I got tired of shouting into the wind and trying to help the company and try to do these things and just to be able to have 5% of what you're contributing actually brought forth. And so I thought I could do better. I knew I could do better. And I felt constrained. I felt, repressed by it. And so as I got out, that was my primary impetus to get out, was to say, you know what, I can do so much more than what I'm currently doing. And then as I got out there and I said, all right, well, what am I going to do? And I'm like, well, I know how to make products. I'll make products for people. And as I started going through that journey, I started to see a pattern emerge of people who have this great idea and this great energy and this enthusiasm. And unfortunately, it turns into this bitter nightmare. And usually what happens is because they don't have access to knowledge of the process and how to develop products, and because they don't know the funding piece, all of that energy and that shiny, beautiful dream gets crushed. And all of a sudden it becomes this source of debt and this source of, remember that dream you once had where we were going to stand up the product. And it's really a shame. It's such an avoidable thing. And once again, the idea, I thought I could help people and actually help them to say, you're about to step in a big bear trap. Before you put your foot down, let's have a conversation. And as I started to do that as part of Acumen CPG, I realized that I could really help people go from I have a dream to actually successfully standing it up and to look back and smile and feel that fulfillment instead of looking back and saying, God, we really screwed that one up and we should have never even done it. Because I don't know, we all have individual talents and God-given skills that we have. And I think when people have these ideas, they say, I woke up and I had this amazing idea, let's commercialize it. I think that's a divine spark, that creativity that's there. And they came up with it for a reason. And so I feel obligated to say, what can we do to actually kind of encourage that and bring it to life and not let it die and not let it get crushed. So, yes.
Are you entirely focused on hard products, on things that we manufactured, as opposed to softer things like someone who wants to start a retail business or
service industry, or
something in the service industry?
We would not be opposed to it. The only caveat I would say is we want to go to our strengths and what we know we can do well. And while I think much of the skills and the ability to do a service industry versus consumer goods versus a software app, much of that process is say, how does an idea turn into something that's real? Much of that process and those skills are fungible and transferable. But once again, back to the short runway, that we feel this urge and this desire to go forward, and we don't want to set ourselves up for a massive learning curve to something that we could probably do well at because our aptitude is very good, but we're going to waste a lot of years just trying to get up to speed. But that's the part I talked about with the deep bench earlier. The number of resources us collectively at Venture Product Studios has, it's staggering. The number of people in different industries that we've all collectively accumulated over the last 30 to 40 years gives us the ability to say, you know what, we want to dabble in the world of a retail, or we want to dabble in something else. I think we certainly have access to the knowledge, but I think we're also trying to be choiceful. And once again, this idea that if everybody's looking at X, let's work on Y, because everybody's distracted over there. And our Y is this idea about consumer goods. It's a good place to be. And the last part I would throw on top of it really quick is, once again, this evolving global picture. Everything's sourced out of Asia. Those days are changing. And so we're going through this tectonic shift, and where do babies come from? Where do products come from, literally? And again, we want to be the thought leaders and position ourselves in a way to be able to take advantage when that shift is fully kind of realized. And right now what we see people in Asia and every companies who are established scrambling to find an exit strategy that doesn't totally tank and disrupt their existing business. And they're freaking out, and they're going in all kinds of different directions. And so again, we see that as an opportunity to say, well, everybody else is freaking out. We've got a clean sheet of paper, and we're actually built to take advantage of it from day one.
That's what, can I just add to
Yes.
that? In terms of, I've been involved in the accelerator incubator space, startup space for a long time. I have some family members that are deep into it also. What you don't see in any of it is consumer product.
Yeah.
It's all
Right.
platform-based, digital-based, biotech. Everybody wants to be the next Uber,
Yeah.
the next Tesla, the next whatever. What you don't find is people with Joe's expertise at that level to teach people how to go from A to Z. In terms of our company, and Joe and our development of this, I'm the ready, fire, aim guy. Joe's the ready, aim, fire guy.
That's great.
So when you hear us talk, it's this constant tension of, okay, let's move. Whereas Joe's saying, well, wait a minute, this is the process. So it's been an education for me.
Yeah.
Because I always thought, oh, gee, I see all these great, beautiful things on TV, and there must be nothing to make it. And then when I talked to Joe, I realized it's a year and 18 months. It's multiple thousands of dollars to get it to the end line. So I think it was really important. One of the missions for Joe and Rick and I and Brian was to say to people like you or people in this room, if you want to make the next pair of eyeglasses, you know how to do that. You wake up in the morning and you go, oh, I got this great idea. You have no clue how to do it.
Yeah.
I don't have any clue. I know now a little bit more because of my relationship with Joe and these guys. But that's why we're really devoted to consumer product development space. I think it's underserved, and I think it's ripe for making money.
Absolutely. And Larry, two things very quickly on that. As I look around the room, anything in this room you touch, from the cover on that outlet to the ceiling tiles to the paint on the walls, is all something that would be in scope of what we do. So the whole world, especially in this consumer society, is great. The other part is the idea about, aim, ready, fire, aim type of mentality. You've actually been a great counterbalance to me. Because me coming from more of a corporate background, working on these billion-dollar brands, which I was very lucky and fortunate to work on, does build in a certain amount of rigidity and formality that I think is not always fast and agile and entrepreneurial. And so Larry helps pull me back from the edge to say, Joe, your springs wound a little bit tight. How about if we, kind of go instead of plan? And so again, it's a very complimentary type of a situation.
Does it include food and beverage, the CPG?
It does. Food and beverage is a little bit of a different animal, but it does include a short answer. And there's projects that I've done independently as well as professional when I was working in a corporate sense, which were food and beverage products. So we have the skill set and we have the ability to do it. But it's different for a lot of reasons, but it's in scope. Okay. Yes.
Kind of a two-part question. Maybe what stage is your company at, or how is your company doing as far as like trying to funnel in people that are outside of your company to bring ideas to work with you? Have you started doing that yet?
Yeah, so we've tried to build a structure so that build a structure, but then also build the awareness so people would even know that we exist. So obviously today is a good opportunity for us to speak to that, but to say, hey, we're open for business and hang the side outside. One of the things, though, I would qualify as far as having that door open to say I have outside ideas coming in is that, Rick and I talked about what's a qualified idea and what's somebody who's good for InVenture product studios, what are the types that maybe aren't. And so because we're trying to go for a very specific high-level win, we're trying to be selective that if it's somebody who just has a widget or a hobby that they're looking to do, we're very happy to support them to work with it. But they need to be able to obviously commit and have skin in the game to say they're ready to go for it and make it big. So we have a vetting process by which we're going to look at these things to say what's what. And it's tough because, business is business. And if somebody comes in and they got a fistful of cash and they're like, we'd love you to help us, how do you turn them away and say no? But once again, we're trying to be choiceful and we're trying to be careful in what we do.
Yeah, I just had this thought while listening to you speak, wondering whether something like an online masterclass would be a good fit for your company to be like a kind of like an arm underneath the umbrella of an income opportunity for you all, plus being able to be a funnel for, these people who are coming in with outside ideas. And it also would help you filter through who are, good fit to work with you all.
I think you're clairvoyant because Larry, we and I were just talking about this 40 minutes ago
Oh.
about online materials and masterclass. And it's actually something we've been doing in the last couple of months, which is making this pivot to something very similar to what you just described.
Okay.
Because I think it does a few things. I think number one, we've got a good story to tell, and we've got a lot of knowledge we can impart that would be helpful to a lot of people. And number two, it's a great promotional vehicle, and it gets your name out there, and it demonstrates credibility to say, yeah, it sounds really good, but are you full of shit? And it's like, well, no, let me show you a long form why
And
not.
I'm sure
for
that
it.
there are just tons of people on social media that are the type of people that
Yeah.
wake up with these ideas but have no idea where to start. And
That's
so
right.
being able to capture those leads through social media and then funnel them through
Yeah.
a masterclass or a masterclass series or something like that,
Mhm.
that then, you're able to let them know, hey, if you meet these qualifications, apply to work with us or something like that.
I thank you for bringing that up because I love what you're saying and it makes a lot of sense. And the fact that you're independently bringing it up tells me that there's value there and it makes sense. And the other thing that jumps in my mind as you say it is that having lived in the consumer goods space and the quote invention space for a while, it can be a pretty slimy area. There's a lot of charlatans and a lot of people looking to take advantage. And you go to InventHelp and as an example, I'll assume you go to these different places and you look at their structure. A lot of times they're, hey, got an idea, got an invention, come talk to us. Number one, sign away a big percentage of your equity. Number two, contractually agree to our system and our process. Number three, don't expect to ever see anything other than
Yeah,
good.
like that, what you just said right there would be an excellent video to put on social
Absolutely
media, just
right.
to educate people from the get-go of this is what you need to look out for.
That's
And then
right.
you're building trust with them.
Yeah,
And
I think it's spot on. So no, thank you for your comments.
Just to interject, I'll share a link with Rick and Graham. We already have a lot of content online, searchio.io. It's a platform. I'm happy to share. We had a big event in June where we had a 3-hour multiple panel discussion. We had an event last week. We've segmented all that. So we'll share that out to the community here. That's all in play.
Okay.
Believe me. I'm a videographer also.
there you go.
So
Still
it's the way I roll. Besides ready, fire, aim, and having that's one of my other. So I'll share that with Rick and Graham, and they can share that portal out. You can see it's all segmented, cleaned up.
Absolutely.
So
But
we're going down that
what we
path.
can do with it, Larry, it's boundless what we can do. There's any subject we could double drill down and just have such rich content. And it's just the whole thing, time and money. It's like if time and money were not a barrier, the amount of things that we could publish, unbelievable.
Well, just kind of following up on
Yeah.
her question, 20 years ago, we were, when bamboo tiki torches were just a thing, right?
Yeah.
And so we were taking tie wire and wiring them to our deck, right? Like, boy, it'd be great if we had something to clamp these on to the railing of our deck.
Yeah.
And it's like, what a great idea. How in the world do we make this? And of course, at that point, the idea just died because we had nowhere to go with it. If someone comes to you with something like that, because like I said, the whole InventHelp thing, how does someone take that idea forward without losing it?
Yeah.
To whoever would then carry it on. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely, I do.
That was what kept us from doing anything with it. And then 2 years later, you see them out in Home Depot. There they are, little music clamp on.
And you say to yourself, that was my
That could have been me, right?
Yeah,
Exactly. I could be living in a much bigger house. But.
Well, and I think in the modern interconnected world, I think it's amazing to be able to have access to those types of things. And I've always said that, life is an open book test. And the trick is, how do you find the information in the time that you're given? Because usually it's like, okay, because I remember taking, I think it was a dynamics class in college. It was open book. I didn't study. And I'm like trying to read the book to pass a test. And you just couldn't do it at the time that it was there. And again, I think that our modern digital world is great because that knowledge is now available for the tiki torch to go forward. The problem is, how do you attenuate your signal to cut the noise from the real signal to say, aha, this is going to be successful versus this is going to put me in the poorhouse and make me bitter at the end of the journey. And so again, it's that attenuation and be able to kind of get the signal to noise ratio correct.
And also to answer your question, I think through Joe and myself and Rick and Brian, if you were to come to us or come to Joe and say, Joe, I have this idea, what do you think about it? I think Joe will spend some time with you
Absolutely.
and help you evaluate that. And the key is having trusted partners. So having a patent attorney that you can talk to and run the idea by. We have all those resources and we're happy to share them. Now, at some point, you're going to have to pay. I mean, at some point, you got to put some skin in the game. But I think initially, through our network and Rick, obviously, we can provide access to the right people.
Yeah, but even internally, it's all staged, and that and Joe doesn't do justice for behind the scenes, and obviously can't. But it's staged in that you evaluate the product at as affordable cost up front as possible, and then if it's evaluated and you're like, let's go forward, and there's a next stage, and then there's the third stage of funding. So it's really designed, even internally, designed to say, okay, will this product work?
Yeah.
And that's where Joe and Brian just dig in, and you're like, whoa, deeper than I ever thought you'd go, and then, absolutely. But one thing that could be clarified, which I really like and everybody to really think about, is, first of all, the right, where you go right to left, but when you do the product, you typically like to design the end game, correct?
Yes, absolutely.
License or product. So if you could just expand on that, just so everybody understands.
Yeah, absolutely. So, it's this idea about, multiple ways you can commercialize a new idea. So I've got an idea for a widget. What do you want to do? And if I were to ask this room, I think everybody would say, well, I want to get into Walmart coast to coast. And so I think it's a very traditional way of thinking, which is brick and mortar retail is going to be my destination. But there's actually lots of other ones. Okay, e-commerce would be just another version of selling the product. But what if you grab some IP and actually get a patent and pursue a licensing deal? And not even worry about the manufacturing. Let somebody else manufacture and just collect royalties in the background. Or maybe you want to go through and say, you know what, I don't want to even fuss with that because now I got to seek new licensees after this one flakes out on me. I'm going to sell the idea outright. So take that idea, develop it to a certain point, protect it, and then sell it because it has value because you've protected it and you've done the legwork that demonstrates a good idea. But again, it's this idea to say, where do I want to go? What is my end destination? And if through all of that work you realize, I don't want to deal with retailers. I don't want to deal with selling a product. I love it, and I want to go on to the next thing. A licensing path is my goal. Now you build your entire financials, you build your entire development schedule, you build all your resource pictures around getting to that licensing end goal. And all of a sudden, you're not spinning your wheels on activities that you really don't need to worry about because you're never going to step foot in any manufacturing facility at all with your idea. And it also tells you as far as budgeting and resources. Okay, a patent is a must-have now instead of a nice-to-have. And how do I go through and find an appropriate patent attorney, and how do I protect it? But again, by knowing the end goals and then working backwards, it helps inform the journey that you're going to take along the way.
Joe, we have one question online from Tamara Osterman from Maryland Economic Development. She wants to know, are you taking equity, which I think you already answered, and then are you also, is it like a blended model of cash and equity from the inventors, if you will?
What I'm going to do is I'm going to punt to Rick because he can give you a much more intelligent answer than I can. So I'm sorry to put you on the spot.
No, that's okay. I mean, I think it's the design and it's still a little bit fungible. Let's say is that design is that we're going to have equity. Equity maybe at the InVenture product studio level as well as the product level. So we're working through how we fund overall, but also each of these products. So it's kind of a combo of both. So to be determined.
And I think that's all the time we have for questions.
Excellent.
We can have time to mingle afterwards, but I know we want to thank you, Joe.
Thank you for the opportunity to talk, and it's cathartic for me to get this jumbled wire messes in my head and get it on the table. So thank you for the opportunity. I do appreciate it. Thank you.
And we have just a few minutes left for some community updates, but I know, Rick, you want to come up real quick and introduce somebody else to us?
So Larry's better half, Linda, has
A longer runway than I
written a book. So I'd like to introduce Linda. Maybe Linda's written a book, and I'll let you let everybody know what you do. But I've worked with Linda a little bit. She's fantastic in helping with public speaking, etc. But she had an idea, brought the book along to have give an introduction yourself, but figure out who takes the book home.
Okay,
right?
who would like the book? Let me first ask you a question. Who here wants to speak, sound, and look like a leader in their industry or in their business? Of course, we all do. And who of us sometimes has misspeaks? We say we're wrong. Grammatically, we make a mistake. We have, maybe we have an accent or saying things different. Maybe we speak Marylandese. And like Joe, I'm not from Maryland. And so I came here and it opened up my eyes to different ways people spoke. For example, I took a yoga class and the instructor said, put one leg across the other. There's no such word as across. And so I started collecting this and listening to broadcasters and people who have PhDs and very educated. and I hear all these misspeaks, and it drove me crazy. And I realized early in my career, somebody who I supervised told me, you're very persnickety. And I wasn't sure if that was an insult. At the time, I thought it was an insult, and then I realized I am Miss Persnickety. That's my alter ego. I'm a much nicer person, but she evaluates people. And here's these things that make you cringe when you say it. So I put together about 60 different words and expressions. Some are mispronunciations. Some of them you'll recognize from Maryland. Some of them are grammatical errors, like do we say me or myself or I, or what words do we use? And unfortunately, when we use those words for the people who are persnickety, it's like, ouch. Are they as educated? And they are, but they missed that day in class. And so I have this book here. It's fun. I also have an online platform that it goes on where you can watch videos, because I happen to know and be married to a videographer. I'm married to Larry, and I have all of this information. So what I wanted to do, just for fun, I've given this to friends where they've sat down with their adult children even and said, let's go through this book and see if we know these things. And somebody else talked about a product, said, why don't you make it into a card deck? Do you know how many, if you look on Facebook, how many card decks there are around holiday season? I don't think it's worth going down that path. Maybe I've been advised by somebody I'm married to that it's not worth it. But the book is fun. And so what I wanted to do is have somebody just pick a page in the book, any page, and we'll see who knows the answer to that. Because some of these are very obvious, but some of them are, ooh, man, I knew there was a difference. So,
Will you give it away to the person?
and I'll give it away to who gets the right answer. Sure, let's.
I'd be happy to do this because I live with someone who
Just
has
like
virtual red pen.
It's hard. I know it's hard for the other person, the other half.
Yeah. So page 27.
Page. All right, tell me the page number. That's even easier. Page 27. At least I have that many pages in it.
I look like the exact same, so I figured that would probably be a good
Okay, well, I'm not going to say the word because it's how do you pronounce it. But what is the second month of the year? What is it?
February.
February. It was too easy. So is it February or February?
That one.
Second one. Okay, that was an easy one because everybody got that one. Okay, give me another
What?
page.
I want the book. I just.
If you could get two, you get the book. What's in the page?
March, April, May.
Page of the book. The other months.
16.
16. Okay.
I have like a list in my head that I want to know if we're in the book.
Well, maybe you could do that too.
Like
Okay,
it's a whole nother thing. Is that in there?
16 I gave away already. That was a cross. Is it a cross or cross?
42.
42. Okay.
The answer to Life Universe and everything.
Well, I'll give a good one if I don't get 42. Let's see. This is the best one. Because I would say I'd say at least 90% of the people say this word incorrectly. Okay. I'm going to spell it for you. Succinct. I want to speak in a very
Succinct.
Say it again.
Succinct.
Succinct is with a K.
Really?
Almost everybody says succinct. But it's succinct. Just like it's not accent, it's accent. When you have two C's together, the first one's a K and the second one's an S. Now, how many people knew that? Just out of curiosity.
Not at all.
Just a few. Okay, well this is, what is your name?
Tina.
Tina. And Tina, you also, I must say, in this group, I must say, I'm listening to all the questions. Everybody is very well spoken in the way that they ask the questions. But I'm sure you pick up some tips here.
Yeah,
You
I'll
might
share
not
with you,
know.
Steve.
And if I do a card deck, I'll bring it here next time. But that will take 18 months to get together. On my website, I have a website,
What's your website?
successfully-speaking.com. I have many books. I published 13 different books on different
I
topics.
still have my little brown handbook.
It's a dash. There's a dash in the middle.
Oh, the dash.
Yes. And again, some people, I had a teacher who was very persnickety, and everybody who went to that high school, at our reunion, said he didn't learn grammar and pronunciation. So,
Yeah.
So this is where you can buy her book, successfully-speaking.com. Right? This is what
yes,
you buy
that's
the
it.
book. Okay.
So
Exactly.
they're only
Miss
available
Persnickety,
online?
scroll down. Yes, no. Scroll down, Miss Persnickety. Right there. Buy Miss Persnickety's Guide to Everyday Mistakes. I also have a course, an online program course on Speak, Sound, Look Like a Leader. And it's up to 60 mini videos on what I teach in my master classes, because I do public speaking master classes as well.
Wonderful. Very cool.
Well, thank you. Nice meeting all of you. Let me know if you have any questions or words.
anybody come here with a community update that they absolutely want to get out quickly?
I have one.
Chris Tillman, yes. Check on the website.
No, don't use it for this. That's just a very quick retail thing.
It's still the holidays.
That's right. It is the holidays. There is a special ladies' night shopping night in Tawnytown. Now, we talked when I was here last time about all of the retail opportunities and how Tawnytown has really kind of exploded here in the last couple of months with retail opportunities. And there's going to be a really fun event on next Wednesday night. We're going to have a food truck. All of the shops in downtown are going to be open until 9 o'clock on Wednesday night, and it's going to be kind of a ladies' night shopping night. Some of the Mindy wine tasting, some of the shops, I don't know, that's still kind of out there. But if you have a chance, come on up and support local.
All right. Tina, you want to come on? Send us out?
Oh, well, thank you so much, everybody, for attending in person, online. Thank you to our speaker and that show. Oh my gosh, I love listening to you speak because you give us the wheels are turning. The one line you said was, "Life is an open book test." And that is just so true. I'm personally, and I have a feeling that this is going to impact everybody in the room, I'm jazzed about the new opportunity that we have with ChatGPT from OpenAI. So if anybody does not know what ChatGPT is, Google it. It's going to change everybody's life. It's so fun. I can't wait to start playing with it. It's open. It's available. It's free to everybody. It's going to help everybody in this room. So that's why I wanted to let everybody know.
Is it chat?
ChatGPT from open.ai. And so with that, we are 1 million cups. We are Westminster's entrepreneurial community. Sometimes we have one speaker, sometimes we have two, and next week it could be you. Go to 1millioncups.com/Westminster and click apply to present. We have an amazing community here of support, people you can plug into. We can get you the help you need in growing your business. Until then, have a great holiday.